So one of my favorite things in the world to do besides metal sculpture is to bow hunt or, shoot my bow. So today's project, I'm going to teach you how to make a bow hunter out of repurposed silverware. First, the materials that we're going to need, I use 3 large spoons. We need 2 for the feet that are the same. 1 for the head. I like using the larger silver serving spoons. We have 2 forks for the hands. I have a small piece of round bar that I got from a yard sign and a piece of filler rod. This will make up your bow and arrow, and then this is the string for your bow. And don't forget coffee. Always need coffee for projects in the shop. All right, now we'll go into the tools that we need to use to make this project happen. All right, the tools you're going to need for this project are, start off with a welder. I use a MIG. You can MIG or TIG this. I use a pair of Welpers. Technically, they're needle nose pliers, but Welpers are made just specifically for the MIG welding. And they're a very handy tool when it comes to cleaning, cleaning your MIG, to bending metal, to holding stuff. I've got a Lixie dead blow hammer. They have softer ends than your average ball peen. I use that to bend the silverware if I can't do it by hand. Some pieces of silverware you can bend by hand. Others you gotta, I use a hammer. I use a vise. But if you don't have a vise, you can use a pair of clamps, vice grip clamps to hold the pieces while you bend them. And you're going to need a cutoff wheel. I prefer to use mine on the die grinder. Smaller, it's easier. We're going to need that to cut up the pieces for the bow. You can use an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. Same thing, probably just as easy to use that. All right, for your first step, you're going to take the 2 spoons that you're using for the feet, and you're going to take your hammer, and you're going to hammer the back side of the back of the spoon down till it's flush with the table. See how this one stands up? By hammering this piece down here, it's going to give you a sturdy base for the feet to stand on. All right, now that you got both the spoons flattened down, you're going to clamp them in your vise, and if you don't have a vise, clamp them to your bench with your clamp. And what we're going to do is we're going to bend them over backwards. Now, the important part here is that you're consistent with both of your spoons so that the the legs are at the same height and that you have them set. So what you'll do is you'll set them in here. And if you can't do it by hand, you're just going to take your hammer. I find that it saves my hands. Just bend it right over backwards to about 90 degrees. You want to do that with both of them. So now to give realism to my sculptures, I think about, as I'm bow hunting, how do I stand when I go to shoot? So you got to think about it and like which way are your legs, which way is your body? You want to, you want to think about, so like are your legs straight? Are they bent? So as you're setting up your sculpture, as you're making these legs, you want to bring that into what you're doing. So are your legs straight? How are your feet standing? And then you want to get your legs and your feet set up like that. So if you bend, if you bend a little bit, you want to make your back leg bend a little bit, then you go and clamp that spoon into your vise, or you clamp it to your bench with your clamp, and you make that how you want it, so that you've got, it is silverware sculpture, but you want to bring that realism into it that is going to make it, people will know immediately when they see it exactly what it is. You don't have to ask you questions. All right, now that I've got the legs set up the way I want them, I'm going to get my MIG welder out and we're going to tack them up. So go ahead and get your MIG and you're going to tack it right here at the very top. And that way it'll give us a little bit of movement so that we can make sure that they are standing the way we want them and that they'll be set up for the body. All right, now my biggest challenge is to hold this the way I want it with one hand and get that tack on there with the other. So just tacking this together is going to allow us to be able to move it around a little bit if it's not the way we want it the first time. We're going to just break it off and, you know, like break it apart and then go ahead and redo it. Alright, so there you go. So the body needs to be with the torso facing forward, but then the head turned to the left or right, depending on if you're lefty or righty. So the way we're going to do that is we'll go ahead and clamp the spoon into the vise. We can take those welpers, which I left over here. You can take your welpers, and you go ahead and just twist the head the way that you want to have it twisted. So that way you're standing this way, your body's forward, but then your head's to the left or to the right. Alright, your next step is going to be to take the body and tack weld it onto your legs. The way that I do that I found the easiest, is just to lay the body on your bench. Hold the legs off of the end of the bench because that way your feet, it'll allow it to be flat. And just go ahead and tack it on. Now it's going to be right, when you're tacking, it's going to be just like that, right there. So that it covers up that back weld and all the tack that you've got on there. And just go ahead again and just give that a tack. That way, if it's not the way you like it, you can just break that off or move it around a little bit until you got it how you want it. Alright, now he is leaning at a weird angle and we're just going to work with this and move him around a little bit until we get him the way we want him. So he should be leaning forward just a little bit. Well, having those tacks on there allow you to move it so that you get the angles that you want with them. Alright, so we've got them so far. Alright, your next step is going to be to use the two forks and you're going to make hands. Now again, you think about what position you stand in when you bow hunt and when you shoot a bow, and one arm's out, the other arm's back like this, both hands are closed. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our welpers, our needle nose pliers, or you can use the vise with the hammer, and what you want to do is you want to bend the fingers around, and sometimes I can take all of them and do it at once. But you're just going to take and bend all the fingers around. Some are easier than others. So maybe you take one or two at once, but you can just take them, squeeze them in really tight. You should be able to do that first bend there. So I've got those two bent over like that. And just continue to bring them around in a circle. Make sure that you leave an opening through there so that he can hold the bow. So we've got one. Now we're going to curl the other one around. There you go. So one arm is bent and the other arm is straight. So we're going to take one of the hands, one of the arms. We're going to put it in our vise about halfway down. You think about where the elbow would be. That's about halfway down. Just going to clamp it in there. And if you can't bend it by hand, oh, look at that. It's never that easy. So just get the bend started by hand, and think about that his arm is closed, you know, as you're shooting almost all the way. So you can bend that right over like that, so it's almost all the way shut. All right, now that we have the hands bent the way we want them, it's time to tack weld them onto his body. You think about where it's going to be, and right about here we're going to tack it onto the back side so that the front will look clean. So we're going to tack the one arm here, and we're going to try to put about halfway through the back, and then we're going to tack weld the other arm right across from it. Once those two are tacked on there, we'll be able to move them around just a little bit to give them that the realistic stance. So again, the tricky part is holding that where you want it as you go to tack it. I think this shouldn't be too bad. So the first one, make sure it's leaning forward just a little, down just a little bit, and you probably can just, look at that. I learn something new every day. Go ahead and lean that there. Now the little monster's going to move on me. So right about there, and give that a tap. Now see how I tack it down here at the bottom corner? That'll allow me to move that up and down slightly. I want that down just a little tiny bit. There we go. So it's at 90-degree angle from the body to the arm. And now this one, I'm going to work a little bit harder. So I'm holding the hand flat to the table with my finger. And I will just about bring this up to where I need it to be. Let's see if we can get this to work. We want that arm in line with the first arm. Give that a tap. Alright, and that should hold it. Alright, so if you've got it where you like it, go ahead and tack the rest of the body up. You're going to need a couple of small tack welds on either of the legs, from the leg to the body on each one, and then from the leg to each leg to each other. And then same thing, probably one more tack on the bottom and then top of each one to the body of the arms. Alright, our next step is to make the bow. And in order to do that, we're going to take this small piece of round bar, and we're going to run it through the hole in his hands, like the opening that we left. We're going to look at here, and we're going to mark a spot on here. We're going to take this over to the vise, we're going to clamp it in, and we're going to get it cut. So now this needs to be curved into a half moon shape that's going to come up and be a crescent like your bow. So what I do is, you can find a hole that you can use to lever it down, and just move it slowly down as I am. Just bend it very slightly. And as you're bending it just a little bit, it'll start to curve around like that. I have to flip it around and start curving the other side. So I try to do it evenly across the whole piece. might need to move it as you go. Just kind of look at it and see where it's at. It does need to lay flat. I've got this curved a little bit. So just bend it and move it until you get it where you want it, where it looks like a bow to you. Alright. I think it needs to go just a little bit more. It's got like a more of a flat spot in the middle that I want to curve just a little bit. Let's play with it till you get it where you want it. Alright, so there's the bow. You can fit it up to your guy here. You're going to try and see how it looks in his hand. So I like how that looks. It looks good to me. So I'm going to get my welder and we're going to go ahead and tack that into his hand. Alright, in order to weld it into his hand, you're going to need to either touch the bottom or the top finger, and you're really going to have to use some finesse with this, with your welder. It doesn't take a lot, and you'll end up melting a finger off. So just take your time and you just want to hit it real quick, give it a tack, and get it centered there like that, and then just give it a quick tack on either the bottom or the top. I'm going to get the bottom because the way it's bent, I think it'll look better that way. Alright, that's all it takes. It's real fast and easy. And as you can see, it's tacked right on there. So now that you've got that, we'll go ahead and I'll show you how to put the string on the bow. Alright, to string the bow, we're going to take our piece of filler rod here and we're going to run it through his back hand. Make sure we got it in the right spot. And you're going to take it and you're going to bend this piece up to touch your bow like this. Now this is tricky again because you've got to really hit it with the MIG quick and fast, melt it to here, but without melting this all the way. So I'm going to turn, ooh, it's still hot. Hell, weird that that would be hot considering that I just got done welding that. Alright, so take this. We're just going to touch that piece of filler wire right to the end here. And we're just going to tack it on really fast and hopefully we'll get it the first time. Alright, nailed it. Alright, same thing over here. We're just going to take and bend this piece over so that it touches. Now notice I didn't cut it. I'm just going to hold it here. That way I can always bend it more. If I don't get it welded the first time, I'm going to use the heat from the MIG to melt and cut the piece. So just hold it right up against that. You don't have to hold it hard, but just so it's touching. And then we're going to come on this side here, and hopefully the first time is going to be the charm, and we're just going to melt that with it using the MIG tack. Now as you do that, make sure you hold this still, because if you let go when it's still cooling off, it could pop off. So we were lucky we got it the first time. Now back here very gently, you can see that you still have a little gap there. I'm going to put a little bit of MIG Weld here, but I'm going to hold this. Hopefully it doesn't pop. I'm just going to very carefully hit that side now. What you want to do is you want to keep your heat here on the thicker material and just let it melt over very quickly, very quickly onto your thinner material. Alright, there we go, nice solid. That should not come off. And now we can go ahead and make our arrow. We're in the home stretch. All right, in order to make our arrow, we are going to use the same piece of round bar that we made the bow with. And just get an idea of how long it needs to be. You want it to stick out a little bit from here, and we don't need it to go too back far into this hand. So right about in the middle of the hand, you just go ahead and take a marker and make a mark where it needs to be cut. And we'll take this piece back over to our vise, clamp it in, and we'll get it cut. Alright, now I've gone and cut his arrow, and you see I've taken and I've ground down the point so that it looks like an arrow. And what you'll do is you'll just fit it between his fingers here in the back and in the front. Now if the fingers won't allow you to, if they're not spread out enough, I've just using a small chisel and taken and just kind of pried them both spots in order to open it up. You just place that in there, get the arrow out, and now you can either tack weld just here and here, and then here and here, and that'll keep that. It'll keep it in place. There, that will hold it in place. Alright, there you go. He's all set. When you get done welding, always use a wire brush. Clean up any weld discolorations. Take a hammer and a small chisel. Chip off any spatter that you might have. Because I'm using steel MIG wire on stainless steel, I always finish mine up with Rust-Oleum clear coat, just a rattle can you pick up at any store that sells rattle cans. If you guys like the project, please check me out on Instagram and Facebook. And my art is available for sale over on Etsy, Barbie the Welder. Just search it up and hopefully it comes up if I've done my job right. In addition to the silverware sculptures, I make horseshoe sculptures. I have a book that's just been recently published, and you can pick that up if you like these projects. It takes you step by step through all different kinds of projects. I've taken all the pictures. I've got it's loaded with a ton of pictures. All the different projects that you can make, available online through Amazon, through Barnes & Noble and Tractor Supply, or check out your local Tractor Supply store or your local Barnes & Noble store. If they don't have it, ask them for it. They can order it in for you. I really appreciate your time that you guys have taken to watch the video. If there's anything you guys want to see me make, shoot me a message down in the comments, and I'll do my best to get those projects going for you. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.